slain for the sin of the world. His blood breaks the chains, and every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Oh, every knee will bow before him. Captives free. Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles. Every knee will bow before him. Our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sin of the world. His blood breaks the chains, and every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Oh, every knee will bow before him.
Church, it's so good to see you here this morning. I think I lost my page. There it is. I'm so glad you joined us this morning, and I pray that you are nice and cool in air conditioning after a week of just sweaty heat. It was terrible this week. Amen. This morning, I wanted to welcome you with a verse from Matthew that I felt I needed this morning. And it's from Matthew 11. It says, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." So God, this morning, we lay whatever burdens we have down at your feet, whatever exhaustion, anxiety, depression, whatever it is, God, we just hand it over to you. God, and I know you will comfort us and join us wherever we find ourselves. God, and I pray that we meet you in that space, whatever space we're watching, whatever time it is, whether this morning at 9:18 or this week at the cabin, at our homes. Father, I pray that we experience your presence and your love and your comfort with us this week. Amen. this morning, I want to invite my friend Adam up. He's got a few announcements to share. One for sure. I think I have the other one written down. Is your mic on?
I think it's on.
It's on? It is on.
It is on.
It's just not on in here.
I'll use this one. Perfect. Yeah, good morning, Eastview. Thank you very much for having me this morning. Nice to see everyone here, and I definitely resonate with Ryan there. It's been a hot and sweaty week, and very much very looking forward to some cooler temperatures. So yeah, with that, we have some announcements this morning. One for me personally, as chair of the missions board. Just wanted to give you an update on the Cagazo refugee family. We have been blessed with a lot of furniture and household goods throughout the past couple of months that we are going to be using to furnish their home, which is hopefully coming as the pandemic continues. We will get some more info as to when we expect the family to come. So with that, we have been able to store a lot of this material this material at Eastview for the past couple of months. And good news, as we continue to open up and prepare for ministries that will start again in the fall, we need to move this stuff to a more temporary but longer-term storage facility until the family comes. So we're just putting the ask out right now that if you have any connections or room or maybe just a spare sea can lying around, you know, something like that. Whereas we're looking to come up with a solution to store this material. If you want to get in contact with me, you can contact me directly or Eastview Missions at eastview.org, and we'd love to hear from you. Finally, I know there's one for VBS, Ryan. What dates do we have there? August 8th to 12th. We have VBS coming this summer. Registration is online. Glad we had this conversation. This is fun. We're looking forward to it as we continue to kind of open up for the summer. And yeah, that's it from me. God bless as we continue this morning.
Thanks, Adam. Well, this morning I want to invite you to stand if you feel like you stand. If you just want to sit, that's okay too. But I want to invite you to worship with us this morning.
Satisfied.
give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. Lord, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Lord, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. Lord, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you. 'Cause the God of the mountain is the God of the valley. And there's not a place your mercy and grace won't find me again. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. You are here, turning lives around. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, mending every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, turning lives
feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. Oh, you never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 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 You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are.
Who am I that the highest king would welcome me? I was lost, but he brought me in. Oh, his love for me. Oh, his love for me. Who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. Free at last, he has ransomed me. Oh, his grace runs deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, he died for me. Who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. Not forsaken, I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. Oh, I am who you say I am. Yes, I am who you say I am. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am.
Hey everyone, good morning. Welcome to my kitchen. I am mixing up some telephone cake. I've got my bowl and my spoon here and all my ingredients out. Now you might be wondering what telephone cake is. It's a recipe that belonged to my grandma. I found it in one of her cookbooks. Now I'm not actually going to be mixing my phone in with the sugar and the flour. I don't think that would be very good for my phone. Probably wouldn't taste very, very good. But you know, the recipe I found, it doesn't have any pictures, but has chocolate in it. So I'm guessing it's going to be pretty good. So my grandma was a really good cook and she liked to collect recipes. So she had a whole bunch of recipes written down on little scraps of paper from family and from friends. A few years ago, my aunt put them all together in this book and gave it to us grandkids. So there's a picture of my grandma right there on the cover. And inside is all sorts of recipes that she collected over the years. And some of them, they sound pretty good. There's things like fruit fluff and bake day surprise. I've tried that one and it's really super yummy. But you know what, there's some in there that seem a little strange too. There's a lemon vinegar drink. There's tomato soup cake. How about jellied meatloaf? Or maybe apricot tongue? Ugh. I don't know. I think she was a little bit more of an adventurous cook than I am. So some of the recipes in here are, even for my mom, there's a little note written next to them saying that they're from Sharon, which is kind of cool because those are recipes I actually remember as well. They were usually the company recipes. So they were the meals that my mom would make when we had people come over for a special meal. Sometimes that would be family, sometimes from as far away as Winnipeg. And sometimes it would be friends from church. And sometimes it would be people that we didn't really even know. If people came over to the farm to do some work for us or something like that, often they would be invited in for a cup of coffee and some of my mom's homemade cookies or her buns. She always had extras in the freezer just in case people came over. So my mom and dad and my grandparents are really good at showing hospitality. Kids, do you know what hospitality might mean? Did you guess that maybe it has something to do with the word hospital? You'd be pretty close, be on the right track. I looked up the word hospitality in the dictionary, and this is what it said. It said hospitality is the friendly and generous reception and entertainment of guests, visitors, and strangers. But it's actually even a little more than that. It's showing care and love to people who are in need. Sometimes maybe it means having somebody over for a meal, but sometimes it's even more than that, like what you would see at a hospital where somebody is in urgent need of medical attention and you're showing care and love and caring for the needs they have right at that moment. Hospitality has a lot to do with loving the people around us. Does this sound familiar? Do you remember what Pastor Andrea talked about last week? Remember she had that big movie marquee set up on the stage and there were those mixed up letters on it? Do you remember what they spelled out? That's right, love one another. Jesus told us to love one another just like he loved us. Jesus loved us so much, he gave his life for us on the cross. When we make him the Lord of our lives, he invites us to be part of his family. When Jesus was here on earth, he practiced hospitality all the time. He ate meals with tax collectors, people that most others wouldn't hang out with. He healed people who were really, really sick. Again, they were people that others would stay away from. Jesus showed care and love and compassion to others all the time. When we practice hospitality like Jesus did, we're showing that we're his follower, and others can see that too. Hopefully they'll want to make that choice to follow Jesus with their own lives as well. Hospitality is right at the center of what it means to be a Jesus follower. One of the ways we can practice hospitality is by hanging out together, whether it's at home or somewhere else. Now, this has been a little bit harder to do because of COVID, but I even saw some really great ideas where people had a meal together over Zoom, where they each ate in their own separate homes, but they connected over the Zoom video call and were able to have a really great conversation and make really great connections. That's what hospitality is all about, is connecting with each other. And sometimes conversations can even be talking about Jesus. There's a great little verse in 1 Peter that goes like this. Cheerfully share your home with those who need a meal or a place to stay. That's found in 1 Peter 4 verse 9. I remember one time when I was traveling with my family when I was pretty young on a really long car trip. Now I have a younger brother who had pretty bad asthma as a kid, and he was on some medication where he needed to use this machine that had to be plugged in for him to get his medication. Now we were traveling late at night and he was starting to be in a bit of trouble where he was having a really hard time breathing. He was on the verge of having an asthma attack. My parents were getting pretty concerned, so we were trying to find a place where we could stay for the night. Now, we pulled into the city and unfortunately, there was a big event going on and all of the hotels and motels were booked. There was no room anywhere. We couldn't find any place to stay. It was getting later and later and he was having more and more trouble breathing. We were getting pretty concerned. Finally, we pulled into one last motel and my mom went up to talk to the lady at the desk and it was the same story. There was no room there. We couldn't stay there. So my mom was wondering if there was at least an outlet where we could plug in the machine, maybe in the lobby or something. But you know what? That's when the lady did something really surprising. So this lady, who, remember, didn't know us at all, she was a stranger to us and we were strangers to her, she was just getting off her shift for the night and she offered to let us, a family of 5 with 3 little kids, one of whom was having a medical emergency, come over to her own home and stay the night. What an amazing answer to prayer. We went with her and we stayed the night. My brother got his medication and he was fine. We had breakfast with her the next morning and we went on our way. That night, that lady showed the hands and feet of Jesus to us. She showed us amazing hospitality, that care and love for another person. I will never forget that. You know, Jesus wasn't afraid to show others hospitality, right? He regularly invited people in who were usually on the outside. And that's what he invites us to do as well. The 2 greatest commandments are love God and love others. That's our friends and our family, but it's also those who we don't know yet. So I am going to finish making up my telephone cake. I wonder who I can share that with this week. You know, we would love to hear your ideas as well, how you are going to show hospitality this summer. So if you have some great ideas or some photos that you would like to share with us, you can send those to childrens@eastview.org. We would love to see them. All right, I'm going to get started on this cake. Have a great week, everyone. See you next time.
Thanks, Kelly. Right here is the time in our service where we would usually take an offering. And I've been waiting for Arnold to come by our houses with a basket, but that's just not the way things work right now. But as much as offering is something that keeps the lights on and keeps ministries running, it's so much more than that. It's us giving back to God what he has blessed us with. And so this morning, even though Arnold's not going to come to your house, there are plenty of ways for us to give back to what God is doing here. So I want to encourage you to take some time this morning to just spend a moment with God and listen to what he is calling you to do, what he's calling you to give, where he's calling you to serve this morning. Let's pray. God, this morning we thank you for your goodness and your blessings. God, we thank you for your comfort and how you meet us right where we're at. And right now, God, we're just going to take a moment and acknowledge all that you're doing in our church community, in the community around us, in our city, and just give back to you what you have already given to us and blessed us with. God, I pray that it is an act of worship to you, and that it is praise to you this morning. And I pray this in your name, amen. So this morning, I have the wonderful opportunity to introduce all of you to some friends of mine. I have the wonderful opportunity to be a part of a young adults community here in the city called Bread We Break. And it's a worship night that happens about twice monthly, pre-COVID. And it's a great time. And our mission and our vision, this is kind of what we do. Our mission is to lift high the name of Jesus in worship, remember him constantly in communion, and unite his church in fellowship. And our vision, and how we're achieving this, is by journeying together on common ground, we discover the fullness of the Father and grow in our outpouring devotion to him. So today, I get to share part of that community with you. I get to share a project that we undertook just before COVID hit 18-ish months ago. We started recording an album, and then Code Red hit, and that was the end of that for a long time. But we finally released this album in the middle of a pandemic as a way to continue our events without actually being together and connect our community even when we can't be in the same room. Our goal is to build up the local church. And so this morning, we pray, and I pray, that this song we're going to share right now is a blessing to you this morning. So let's take a listen.
Spirit.
is the place where I'm made whole. Everything makes sense, you quiet my soul. You quiet my soul.
Well, good morning, everyone. That was an amazing song. It was beautiful. It was a great kids feature this morning by Kelly. There's just been a lot of good going on, and that's exciting. And so, again, welcome here to you, those of you who are at home watching. I want to say Happy Canada Day and Happy Independence Day. I think we have people in the U.S. that watch us every week. So happy Independence Day. I hope you have some amazing fireworks. I took in the fireworks in Niverville this year, and there was a grass fire that started after the fireworks. So as we were leaving, the fire department was coming. It was very exciting. So I wish you in the U.S. all the excitement that we had in Niverville. All right. This morning we're talking about hospitality. Now, after I graduated in 1998, I went to Austria to Bible school, to Tauernhof, which is a capernary school. Actually, it's called the Torchbearer School. And I did a 6-week summer course there, and then I had 6 weeks of travel before the fall course started. And so I came home from my brother's wedding for 2 weeks back in Canada, and then I booked it back over to Europe, and I traveled for a number of weeks. 2 weeks I was on my own, and 2 weeks I stayed with my aunt and uncle in Germany. And while I was on my own, I saw amazing things. I went, stayed with a friend of mine, Torsten, in Germany that I'd met in Bible school for a number of days. And then I went and stayed some nights with some Dutch friends, and that was very exciting because they had a chicken farm, and I was a chicken farmer, so that felt like home. And then I went south through Belgium, and then I went to Paris. I spent the day in Paris, just by myself, walking around, having fun time there. And then I went to the south of France. Now, I don't know if you ever played the game Carcassonne, but if you played the game Carcassonne, I went to Carcassonne. And it looks exactly like the cover or the picture on the box. It's a very ancient medieval city, and it's beautiful. And while I was there, I stayed with this family. Now, how did I get connected with this family? I had a book called Mennonite Your Way. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but there's actually Mennonites all around the world who allow you to stay at their house for super, super cheap, and it's very fun. I would have liked to have done it more. I only did it once. And the interesting thing is the people I stayed with, they were popcorn farmers. So they had lots of corn, but they harvested it for the purpose of popcorn. And the wife was actually from Kansas, so she spoke English, gratefully. And but I stayed down the road with her mother-in-law, grand-mère, and she only spoke French, and I spoke really bad French. So it was a good time. But you know, there's something about it being so far from home that to have a place, we laugh about being Mennonite and stuff like that. I laugh about being Mennonite, but there's something amazing about finding people who understand your language, your way of life, some of your beliefs, no matter where you go in the world. There's just something amazing about staying with them. Or staying with my friend Torsten in Germany. We traveled together. He showed me a bunch of different castles and stuff like that. I remember every morning he was up super early because he wanted to go down to the bakery and get fresh stuff for us for breakfast. And, hospitality. He was so amazing. There isn't much glamorous about it. It wasn't very glamorous. Walking through Paris felt very, romantic and ethereal and all those things, right? But then you go and you stay with some family with little kids and a grandma, popcorn farmers, It's not glamorous. It's just good, kind, and generous hospitality. And I have never forgotten it. Now, many, many movies, many of them, feature journeys. Journeys that take people far from home. There's that famous extraterrestrial movie, E.T. from 1982. The line in that movie is, E.T. phone home. No, it's not E.T. phone home. It's phone home E.T. I think that's how it goes. It's backwards from what we usually think it is. And then there's Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. Now, this movie is from 1939. I didn't even realize it. That's very old. That's a very old movie. That's when it came out. And she has this famous, fabulously state the obvious line where she goes, "Toto, I have the feeling we're not in Kansas anymore." And I don't know what gave it away. Maybe the dancing, people in the countryside or the lion she's meeting, but she's not in Kansas anymore. And when she finally comes to her end of the journey, the spell that brings her back to her home is this melodramatic. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. And along the way, she meets these characters. And they bring her along into their circle of friends. That journey that they went on together is a show of hospitality. And it shows how we long for home when we're far away. In God's economy, there were three groups of people who were highly favored: the fatherless child, the widow, and the Dorothys. They were called foreigners in the Bible. Sometimes they were called aliens. Being a foreigner in the ancient Near East was a dicey spot to find yourself in. The countryside was rife with crooks, criminals, robbers, and murderers. Hence you have, stories like the Good Samaritan, which were so shocking. Even into the medieval times, the Holy Land was incredibly dangerous. That's how the Knights Templar, I was just watching a documentary about the Knights Templar, and they made their fortunes by helping rich European families find their way to Jerusalem on a pilgrimage. It's a dangerous place to live and to travel. For this reason, God commanded Israel to welcome the foreigner. In Leviticus, going way back thousands of years, Leviticus 19, verse 33, it says, "When an alien or a foreigner resides with you in your land, you must not oppress him. You will regard the foreigner or alien who resides with you as a native born among you. You are to love him as yourself, for you were once aliens in the land of Egypt." Remember, you were once travelers. You were once foreigners. Remember what it was like to be mistreated, and don't mistreat him. Deuteronomy 10, verse 19 says, "You are to love the resident alien, since you were resident aliens in the land of Egypt." And I'm sorry, this translation of the Bible always uses alien. It just makes me think of E.T. every time I say it. You are also to love the resident alien. Think about it. Think about what this meant to be hospitable to a foreigner, someone you didn't know. How could you know if the person coming into your home was dangerous? It was actually a risk to take people in. But hospitality, this was meant to be a hallmark characteristic for the nation of Israel, and it was meant to be a hallmark characteristic of the church. In 1 Peter 4, verse 9, Peter tells the recipients of his first letter to be hospitable to one another and without complaining. Be hospitable to one another without complaining. He couldn't be more clear. He says we are to take people into our home even if we are not sure of their intent. If they need a place to stay, you bring them in. That story that Kelly shared in the children's feature about a hotel staff offering her family a place to stay, I mean, that's right out of the Bible. That's like Mary, Joseph, and Jesus stuff. It's amazing that people still do that. How could she have known, that lady? How could she have known that they weren't going to take something, or that they wouldn't mistreat her? It's a remarkable risk to be hospitable. It really is. Now, the word hospitality in English, I did some research on it this week, and it's got a really fascinating history. There's lots of related words and concepts. Hospitality comes from the Latin word hospice, which gave us the word host. But the word hospice could mean either the host or the guest. It didn't matter. It was a mix of both. In fact, the word hospice could mean a friend or an enemy. So in the context of our enemies, that's also where we get the word hostile. Hospitality, hostile. They're all connected. Furthermore, the original hospitals, hospitality, they were just guest houses. Those eventually became known as shelters for the needy hospitals that we know today. Hostels continue today as an option to hotels, both which are derived from the word hospitality. It's a rich word. It's got a lot of meanings. And it's no less rich in New Testament Greek. In Greek, the word translated hospitality is xenia, which means to offer protection and hospitality to strangers. But the writer of Hebrews marries it with another Greek word, philo or phileo, which is from the word Philadelphia, which means brotherly love or affection. So hospitality is seen as an act of love and affection for the stranger, regardless of their intent. The writer of Hebrews even connects the two now at the beginning of chapter 13, where he says, let brotherly love, Philadelphia, continue, and don't neglect to show hospitality, which is philoxenon. It's beautiful, isn't it? And this is the kind of warmth with which we are to welcome strangers, as well as one another. You see, this wasn't just for strangers. That's not what Peter was saying. Peter was making it about one another in the church, and I don't know what's necessarily harder. Is it harder to invite someone you don't know into your house or someone you do know? Is it easier to have family over or friends over? What's more difficult? It doesn't matter. Peter says you are to do it and to do it without complaining. Now, interestingly enough, I didn't read you all of Hebrews 13. Listen to this. Let brotherly love continue. Don't neglect to show hospitality, for by doing so, some have welcomed angels as guests without knowing it. Angels! And you think, not my friends and family. Those were no angels, right? They put a hole in my wall. They ate all my food, not angels. Well, actually, you don't know whether angels would put a hole in your wall or whether they would eat all your food. So really, you're arguing from lack of knowledge. But anyways, in truth, I think we have this naive explanation for this passage. Hospitality, we welcome in angels, and we, we tell kids, be nice to everyone, because you never know if one of them is an angel. I mean, just think back on the guests that you've had in your home. I don't think so, right? That can't be what this passage is talking about. What this passage is actually talking about, not is about welcoming angels into your home, but it's to hearken back to another story in Genesis 18. In that story, Abraham welcomes 3 visitors. One of them was the angel of the Lord's army. His name was Yahweh. God was visiting Abraham. And Yahweh had 2 Secret Service agents along with him. I don't know whether they were bodyguards doing some, roughing up of the crooks in the countryside on the way to Abraham's house. But they were all together. And there's some disagreement whether Abraham actually knew these people or not. But I don't know how he couldn't have known them. If you read the stories, he had met with Yahweh before, and I don't know if Yahweh is a shapeshifter that he changes appearances from one time to the next, but Abraham had met him before, and as soon as he saw these men, these 3 guys, he recognized at least one of them, and he immediately went into action. He went and he made this huge meal. I mean, it would have taken all day to just get ready to host these people. Yet I don't think that Abraham behaves much differently than he would for most foreigners. In fact, I'm willing to bet that. And in Hebrews, the writer of Hebrews, what he's doing is he's saying, you should treat people the same way as Abraham treated the angels. So the lesson is not that if we practice hospitality, some of our guests might turn out to be angels. That's not the point. The point is that we are to treat all people with the same respect as if they were. Regardless of what strata of society they come from. Now think about this for a minute. Is this how we behave? Let's say the Queen was coming to Manitoba. I don't think she would this week. But let's say she was coming to Manitoba. Now, unless you're one of those cynical anarchists, you likely spend a bit more time mowing your lawn. right? Or you'd make sure, that the dirty diapers that spilled out of the garbage last week on your driveway were cleaned up. So that even if she passed by your house, she would see something that was pristine and clean. And if the queen was coming to dinner, well, there would be a flurry of haircuts, I know in my house at least, and showers, and floors would be washed, and pillows would be fluffed, and then probably smacked in the middle, so they do that nice V. But maybe you don't care about the queen. Well then, imagine that it's Wayne Gretzky coming over, or Tom Brady, or Bono, or Garth Brooks. I don't know. Pick your star. You would behave differently, wouldn't you? You would make sure the house is nice. If they were coming for dinner, you wouldn't be having pizza pockets that night. I know that about you. And yet, James warns us that we should be very careful about treating poor people different than rich people. This is what he says in James 2, verse 1-4. My brothers and sisters, do not show favoritism as you hold on to faith in our glorious Lord Jesus. For if someone comes into your meeting wearing a gold ring and dressed in fine clothes, and a poor person comes in wearing filthy clothes, if you look in favor on the one wearing the fine clothes and say, sit here in a good place, and yet you say to the person who's poor, sit over there on the floor near my footstool, haven't you made distinctions among yourselves and become judges with evil thoughts? Don't treat the rich with favor and the poor with disfavor or dishonor. It goes on to say, don't you know that the Lord chose the poor of this world to be rich in faith? And yet you dishonored that poor man. You dishonored him. But that's not all of it. See, hospitality actually gets crazy. There's a point where Jesus, in his sermon in Matthew 25, he's telling a parable of the sheep and the goats to his disciples. And he says that when they gave food, drink, or clothing to the needy, they weren't just doing it to angels. They were doing it to him. Listen to what he says here. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and the angels with him, and when he will sit on his glorious throne, all the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate them one from another, just as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those who are on his right, come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me. Then the righteous will answer, Lord, when did we see you hungry or feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and take you in, or without clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and visit you? And the king will answer them, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did it for me. Can you imagine this? Jesus was elevating the lowest to receive the same honor that he would receive. Just let that sink in for a minute. Jesus, the King of the universe, was elevating the lowest to his status. You see, the point of Hebrews 13 is not that we should have strangers over on the off chance that they're angels. It's that it wouldn't matter if they were angels, or Jesus for that matter. We are to treat all people equally. This changed everything and changes everything. He's saying that your home should be a place of safety and peace for those who are or who feel far from home. Oh man, think of that. My grandmother, who lived in Altona, I didn't know her very, very well. My grandparents on that side of the family were very old when I was little. But my mom has told me stories where the indigenous men, there's a reservation close by, and the indigenous men would know that they could come to her back door and she would feed them. And she didn't feel comfortable bringing strange men into her home. But they knew that they could knock on Helen Ence's door and she would have a meal for them. Hospitality. Mennonites, I know not everyone in this church clearly is a Mennonite, but it's part of the Mennonite Brethren tradition. Mennonites are known for hospitality. You see, we think they're known for food. But they don't just make food for themselves. There's always a lot of food. A lot of food. And it's food for other people to share in. My parents, I remember, they sponsored an international student from China when he was in university. He was actually close to my dad's age. And he would come over and he made us so many pot stickers on New Year's Eve. I've never seen a single person eat that many pot stickers in my entire life. He just packed them away. But my parents always had people come. Always. At Christmas, you could expect another seat at the table. Always. And they made sure there were gifts for those people as well. Can I tell you why this is so powerful, this idea of hospitality? It's because hospitality like this attacks our social status. It affects how we think of ourselves in the world. You see, like it or not, you tend to think that you're pretty hot stuff as an individual. You wake up as the hero of your own story every single morning. You just do. We tend to judge those who are different than us, who have a different standard of living or a different standard of hygiene, or a different understanding of morality, or a different religion, or a different kind of family. The reality is we prefer, as a people, homogeneity. We prefer it. And the ironic thing to me is that Jesus says in the end, there will be homogeneity. You'll be among the sheep or the goats. All equal, two classes. So what can we do about this? How do we put this into practice? Because you might be thinking, man, I agree with what Thom is saying in principle, but we're in the midst of a pandemic. And the reality is, my friends are pretty homogeneous. They do look and act a lot like me. And that's my point. You need different friends. You need to add to your friendship circle. There was an evangelist who came and visited us at Tauernhof when I was a student. And I remember him telling us that when you do evangelism, you need to actually, there is such a thing as just witnessing to people. My friend Donovan Friesen, who's a pastor here in Winnipeg, he says that every conversation you have should lead someone closer to the King. Doesn't matter whether you're standing in line at the cash register or whether you're, walking through the park. It doesn't matter. Every conversation should lead you closer to the King. But there's something powerful about friendship evangelism. But how do you make friends that are different than you? One thing he told us is this. He says, I recommend you choose one restaurant you like and always go there. Just go to the same restaurant. Always go to the same coffee shop. Because you know what's going to happen? You're going to get to know the barista or the server or maybe the owner of the little cafe that you're in. And over time, you're going to know them by name. And you know what you're going to start to do? Tip generously. Tip generously. Who cares what you feel about tipping? Tip generously. Get to know the person behind the counter, and guess what? You're going to make a friend. I guarantee you, tipping generously makes friends. I was a waiter once. That's one way to get to know people. This is going to look different for everybody, right? In our family, our hospitality has looked like taking 30 foster children in to our home over the last 10 years. It's how we do it. And then it's been, how do we get to know their parents in a safe way that doesn't put them in a position of vulnerability and doesn't, put us and our family in a position of vulnerability. But we get to know their families. We love it. Wherever possible. It's not always possible. That's how it looks for us. That's not how it should look for everyone. You should expect that once we start meeting in person again, and hopefully it won't be too long from now, That the makeup of the congregation may look a little different than you remember. There might be people who aren't here anymore, and I suspect there's going to be people who have decided to start coming because they've been watching you on YouTube. When they walk into this building for the first time, and their experience with the family at Eastview is more than a digital or online experience, who's going to be the first to cross the aisle to welcome them? And don't worry about it if you're worried, maybe they've been here before, and then you go, hey, welcome here. How long have you been coming? 14 years. And you're like, ooh, don't worry about that. Say sorry that it's taken me 14 years to learn your name. Get over your pride and get to know somebody across the aisle. And don't just talk to people in your own age group. Because young people, you tend to cluster. Guess what? Old people do too. We are a cliquey society. Cross the aisle. Walk across the foyer. I promise you, some grandmas and grandpas in here need to have some young people over for dinner because they are young and starving. Maybe you know of somebody who doesn't have family in the church and they just need a spiritual mom and dad. Cross the aisle. That's hospitality. It's not always just bringing a stranger from outside into your home. It's also, Peter is saying, be hospitable to one another. It's more dangerous sometimes. And if you want to get really crazy, look down the road for the nearest mosque, Buddhist temple, Sikh temple, synagogue, and walk over there and walk into those doors and say, I believe something different. Can I take someone for coffee who can explain their faith to me? Get to know somebody really different. Learn what values they have. And let them know that it's not so that you can tell them about your faith, but so that they can tell you about theirs. Look, this is the reality that Paul and Peter agreed on. When it comes to hospitality, the leaders of the church need to be the first to be hospitable. But you know what I think about leadership principles like this? I always think they'd be much better lived out if everybody just saw themselves as a leader. If everybody in the congregation began to see themselves as a leader and started to embody the characteristics that make leaders great, oh my goodness, can you imagine what would happen at Eastview? Can you just imagine if everybody said, I'm a leader this week, and I know that one of the characteristics of leadership is to be hospitable, so I am going to be hospitable this week. Can you imagine several hundred people doing that for just 1 week, the impact you would have? That would have ripples. I'm going to call up the band now, because to end our service, look, we do lots of learning and talking. But to end our service, I want you to reflect on what you're going to do. What's going to be your action step this week? So what I'd like you to do is find a pen or a paper or pull out your device, pull out your phone or something to write on, okay? And the band is going to play some background music, and then there will be a last song. I'll wrap up. But I want to encourage you to put your decision, whatever you decide to do. If you're on YouTube and you can put it in the chat, I want you to put it in the chat. And if you're not able to put it into the chat, I want you to find someone in your home and either tell the person sitting next to you on the couch, maybe it's your family or your spouse or whatever, or maybe text a friend. But do something with what you decide you're going to do to practice hospitality this week. All right? And I'm going to pray for you. And then we're going to just spend a few moments reflecting on what that action step can be. Father, it's pretty useless to learn Bible stories if there is no actual thing that we do with them. And God, we have lots of good intentions. So I pray that we would actually be courageous and tell someone what our plan is. God, what is the small step that you would like us to take this week? It does not have to be complicated or complex. It really doesn't. It could be over-tipping to bless a waiter. But what is it that you would like us to do this week to practice hospitality, which can have such a profound impact on your kingdom? pray that you would give us ideas now, Jesus. I hope that was enough time for you. I trust that was enough time for you at home. I'm going to go and sit down in a second, and I'm going to look at the YouTube chat, and I expect it to be filled with ideas of how we're going to practice hospitality this week, all right? And if you don't have somebody to tell, you can email me, okay? Thom@eastview.org. And then I'll be able to pray for you this week as you share hospitality with the world. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I've been promising one of my sons that I would build Lego with him. And yesterday when I promised, I was like, I don't know if I'm actually going to do it. Today, I'm going to make sure that that boy is blessed by his dad sitting down and actually building Lego with him. So that will be the way I'm practicing hospitality today. That's actually my plan. So I hope that you have a plan as well. Jesus, I pray that the same way that you show hospitality to the lost, and welcome them into your great house. I pray, God, that we would have that mindset and that we would do it without complaining, that we'd see it as an adventure, a game to outdo hospitality of our neighbors. What a great competition that would be. And Jesus, for those who are introverts or nervous about having people over, I pray that you would just give them somebody they can reach out to text and encourage. Jesus, this is not difficult. We just have to get a little creative. So I pray that you'd help us with that. And now, God, I pray that you would receive a lot of glory as we enter into this last song of worship. Amen.
Thank you, Tom. Will you stand with us as we sing?
Suddenly articulate with 1,000 tongues to lift one cry. Then from north to south and east to west, we'd hear Christ be magnified. Were the whole earth echoing his eminence, and his name would burst from sea and sky. From rivers to the mountain tops, we'd hear Christ be magnified. Oh, Christ be magnified. Just let his praise arise. Christ be magnified in me. Oh, Christ be magnified from the altar of my life. Christ be magnified in me. When every creature altar finds its inmost melody. Every human heart's native cry. Then in one enraptured hymn of praise, we'll sing Christ be magnified. Oh, Christ be magnified. Just let his praise arise. Christ be magnified in me. Oh, Christ be magnified from the altar of my life. Christ be magnified in me. Sing, I won't bow to idols. And I won't bow to idols. I'll stand strong and worship you. And if it puts me in the fire, I'll rejoice 'cause you're there too. And I won't be formed by feelings. I'll hold fast to what is true. 'Cause if the cross brings transformation, you can hang me there with you. 'Cause death is just a doorway into resurrection life. If I join you in your sufferings, then I'll join you when you rise. And when you return in glory with all the angels and the saints, my heart will still be singing, my soul will be the same. Oh, Christ be magnified. Let his praise arise. Christ be magnified in me. Oh, Christ be magnified on the altar of my life. Christ be magnified in me. Sing it. Oh, Christ be magnified. Let his praise arise. Christ be magnified in me. Oh, Christ be magnified from the altar of my life. Christ be magnified in me.
So, church, I want to leave you with this. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace. Have a good week.